Namaste, Dr. Rajan.
Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
So, welcome to this month's seminar.
Namaskar. Namaskar to
Namaste.
everyone.
Namaste, everyone. And all of you hopefully note the topic, building inner awareness. Those of you who are a little familiar with yoga, you can see last month it was building the importance of spinal alignment, which balances the energy within you. And then comes the building of inner awareness. And then the next month, it is about the power of intention, sankalpa in daily living. And we will talk about what is called the pure sankalpa, that evolves one's purpose of for which we have come into this body. The building inner awareness, if we say in a yogic way, is called pratyahara in the Ashtanga Yoga tradition. So with that as the thought, I will stop here. Stomaji, would you like to lead? You're muted.
Thank you. Namaste, everybody. Greetings. Good morning. The building of inner awareness is the whole job of the outer limbs of yoga, the Bahirangas of yoga. The process of that awareness is done through specialized applications of mindfulness in various domains of life. We apply our mindfulness in relationships with others in the yamas, in relationship to ourself with niyamas, in relationship to our bodily life with asana, and with respect to breath and subtle energy in pranayama. And that building of subtle energy is and of inner awareness is something that accumulates over the course of your lifetime. In the beginning of our yoga practice, when we're new to it, we need some discipline. We need to build a habit of coming to the practice every day. And so we set aside a certain amount of time and we get our yoga mat out and we do our practice. And that helps to establish the habit of mindfulness during our practice. And gradually that habit begins to expand into the rest of life. So that after 50 or 60 years, you just keep that mindfulness all the time and you practice all the time. It doesn't matter so much when you set aside specific time to do your practice, because that mindfulness is there helping you to observe the functioning of your mind and your emotions at every moment and in everything that you do. And so gradually our whole experience of our life gets transformed from a life that is built on the basis of, lived on the basis of habit, on the basis of the fulfillment of our desires, to a life that's built on a choice to be aware. And that's the important thing. Awareness requires intention, requires sankalpa. The part of your brain and nervous system that is activated when you are practicing mindful awareness, the middle prefrontal cortex in the center of your forehead, is a part of your brain and nervous system that is activated when you decide to become aware. Otherwise, there's this other portion that we've talked about before, the default mode network, that takes over and sort of functions as your brain on autopilot as you live through your habits. And that's not a bad thing, because in terms of survival, we need to have some sequences of behavior saved up for situations where we're in danger and we need to act quickly. We need to act without thinking. Your child is headed out into the street, into busy traffic, and you don't think about it, you run and grab them. And so that habitual part of our nervous system, which is the bias of our nervous system, keeps us alive and it helps us to survive. And that's a good thing. But the further refinement of our humanity is a matter of building this mindful awareness that over time helps us to develop qualities that are sort of the best of our human being. The qualities of openness, of acceptance, of compassion, of love. Those things all grow in our personality. And the other thing that grows when you activate the mindful part of your brain and nervous system, you feel this subtle sense of joyfulness, of happiness. And that sense of happiness and joyfulness gradually grows and pervades your whole life over a period of long practice of mindfulness. And so you become a happier person. So basically the news is all good in terms of the cultivation of mindfulness. It cultivates the best qualities of our humanity. When we need to respond on the basis of our habits, we can do that. But most of the time we stay focused on observing ourselves as we move through the world. And not observing ourselves in a critical way. That critical voice that's in all of our minds is something that runs out of the default mode network. It's actually a habit. And the kind of observation that I'm talking about is watching your sanskaras arise in your mind. At every moment they're arising, they're coming to bear their fruit. They create an emotional momentum in your mind that makes you want to act in a certain way. And our human free will is precisely the choice to either go with that sanskara or to do something different. That's what we have as far as human free will. And it may not seem like a lot, but a drop of water isn't a lot either. And water yields to everything, but it wears away everything. It has enormous power, even though if you look at it sanskara by sanskara, it's small. So this process of being able to observe how things arise in your mind is the way that we have some ability to alter our karma, to create our future, as my master used to say. Is one of his mottos that he would come back to often was, you are the architect of your life and you decide your destiny. And you decide your destiny based on how you choose to act moment by moment in your life. And if you act based on mindfulness and all of those fruits of the finer aspects of humanity that come with it, then gradually your sanskaras become over time more and more purified, more and more loving, more and more compassionate. And that's one part of the process of how we work with ourselves to change the content of our mind over a lifetime. The other thing that happens is that when you cultivate that inner awareness, you place your awareness in buddhi, which is the purest and the most, it's the part of your mind that is most in contact with Purusha, with Atman. And so the buddhi is the part of your mind that observes everything, witnesses everything you do. And when you ground your mind in that witnessing awareness, you go beyond the causation of ego. The causation of ego comes from buddhi in the Sankhya philosophy. And by going back to the cause, you break the self-identification with the flow of emotions that's coming up in you. And that's called burning sanskaras. And so that's how, even just living your day-to-day life, there are some people who are great masters of yoga who don't do an asana once in their life. But they live their life with this kind of awareness that allows them to burn their sanskaras as they live. I always go back to the great Vedanta teacher, Nisargadatta Maharaj from Mumbai. Nisargadatta was a beggar, basically, who sold biddies on the sidewalk in Mumbai. He had nothing in life, except he had everything in life because he had realized. And he became a great recognized teacher of Vedanta, even though in worldly terms, he was a very lowly person. And so that awareness, cultivating that awareness, is really the key to making our lives better. to being able to change the way that we are tempted to go back all the time to living according to our desires, and to really learn to live by tapas, to learn to live by enjoyment through concentration, which is sort of a corollary to the whole process of becoming mindful. Tapas as enjoyment through concentration is a way to have a better life than other people have. If you really practice tapas, you taste your food more than other people taste their food. You experience your life at a higher level than other people do. And so over time, you get a happier mind. And the fruit of all of this is described by Patanjali in Sutra 33 of the Samadhipada as the Brahmaviharas, the 4 practices that Patanjali recommends for what he calls chitta prasadana, for making the mind clear and pleasant and stable. These are maitri, friendliness, karuna, compassion, mudita, joy-mindedness, and upeksha, emotional non-reactivity. And those are things to practice, but they're also qualities that grow naturally in your mind as you become more aware, as you become more inwardly mindful. So that's a general overview of mindfulness and how it helps us and how it goes side by side with the practice of tapas in life.
Thank you, Stomaji. So, as Stomaji gave you the introduction on the idea of building awareness within, and as I told you right in the opening, that referring to the pratyahara aspect of the Ashtanga Yoga, Stomaji essentially told you this is the culmination of the outer elements that makes you ready for the inner observation in yoga. So, as we carry along this discussion over here, I'll place the discussion in three levels. The first level is, Stomaji did mention to you that it makes you a person who is fully aware and mindful in everything you do, so that you're fulfilling your swadharma. It automatically, the swadharma unfolds. Whereas on the other side of it, when people are asking the question, am I in that state or not? Too many people ask that question, right? So here I'm going to refer to Shobha Krishna, to describe something she observed when we were having our retreat in California. So Shobha, you remember the case when I asked 2 of the people to feel how they are in the hand? Would you like to describe that?
Yes, yes, Narayanji. So there were 2 wonderful people in our retreat, and they were also very highly intuitive. And then Narayanji just asked them to observe their right hand and left hand, and then they could out of their own willpower, they could make their one hand hotter than the other hand. So I mean, I know that was really amazing. So
actually, let me give you a little more details on that. These 2 young people who were there, their nadis were purified enough, whereby they could, by their mental direct their energy whichever the way in which they want. You see, too often when people think of pratyahara, they only read one of the 2 lines that is described in the Yoga Sutras, right? And what are one of the 2 lines? They read the first line, Sutra number 54 of the 2nd chapter, Swavishaya asamprayoge chitta swarupa anukara iva indriyanam pratyaharaha. So the key word is asamprayoge. Samprayoga means fully utilize, fully not utilize is asamprayoge. So this is the concept of drawing inward, and people always describe pratyahara as drawing inward. That is an incomplete understanding of pratyahara. The next sutra says, Tataha parama vashyat indriyanam. So that gives you complete control of the sense organs. So say it is not the concept of withdrawing the senses as if you will not use it. but rather getting full control of the senses within is what pratyahara is all about, right? So now that we understand this, what we experience with these two young people over there who was, they didn't really know that they had that ability. And the pratyahara essentially tells you, you have purified your physical system to a degree where you're ready to go into the higher level of awareness. So these two people didn't really know that that was the case. So we had a dozen or more people in the retreat over there to make it a point. If I go and demonstrate, it's of little value. I don't like doing the demonstration. I much rather show how other people have attained in their life. It's much more educational for audience, right? So I told these two people, keep your hands open. And I asked other people, go and feel their hand. How warm do they feel? Then I told these two people, make your left hand hot and the other hand cold. And then they did that, and the people who were others over there went and touched the hand, and they were in surprise and shock. How are they able to do this? So one of them went and asked the question, how did you do this? She asked this young lady. And the young lady started laughing and said, I don't know. I just told my left hand to become hot and it became hot. Okay? Those were the answer. This is the nature of the supreme control that you develop over the senses within. And it is an indication of purification within. And that purification is what allows you to build the awareness within. And so now that you have a more illustrative example of this, the next question that we want to bring in over here is, obviously all the questions in your mind is, how can everybody attain that level, right? Isn't that a question in your mind? So if you want to attain that level, that is the process of the entire yoga element. But then remember, it is according to where the person is. One size does not fit all. Okay? But a good place to begin for most people is whether, and Stomaji mentioned people, there are people who have never even done asana or anything at all, and yet they have all of that, right? That is really the higher dimension of yoga. However, for most people where the mind is too active, an integrative practice of both the body and mind together along with the breath usually helps them to build inner awareness. So for people for whom the mind is always busy, having walking meditation is usually a good way to begin. But then once people have developed enough control within, then in which case they can go to higher forms of meditative practices. So the idea again is, one size doesn't fit all. However, the normal route that you will see in most yoga places is to begin with asana and pranayam is a very good place to begin, because asana and pranayam brings the physical mind-body awareness bringing in, and in stages it can slowly help to prepare one to go to the higher meditative domain. So that is the thought. Any questions, comments? Anybody?
Dr. Narayan, how did you identify these two people out of the crowd?
You see, that is the yogic ability, where when the need comes, you have the awareness. See, a lot of the elements when we have worked with yoga therapy, which we have developed as a system, while we are using measurement-based tools to make the assessment and the suggestion as to what is right, yet the beginning stages as to how to develop the system comes out of an intuitive and inner awareness, right? Mm-hmm. So, any questions? Comments?
Yes, Dr. Rajan.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for holding this session, and happy Easter to everyone. I was just carefully listening to Dr. Stoma, and believe me, in a I think few minutes he described it so well that I feel that I was getting a nectar, from him, and lot of valuable, tips in a very short time. One difficulty I think probably everyone faces, that when you progress on the meditations, the samskara, which Stomaji said, it comes, then, sometimes I feel that, okay, it becomes difficult to deal with that, because these are rooted in your subconscious mind. So at times, like, you feel very energetic, you feel that you are on top of your mind, but at times when, although you are aware of the situations or whatever, you feel that your subconscious mind is a little bit on top of you. So those moments, how to deal with that? Any suggestions? Thank you.
Well, I think, we all have these moments when a sanskara sort of overtakes us. And I think the first thing is to just be open to whatever is there, to whatever is arising in your mind. And if, observing what is arising changes the context of your relationship to the sanskara, it makes it different than simply sort of acting according to that emotional momentum, reacting, in other words, according to how your karma is sort of pushing you to act in that moment. And you have an ability to watch that process. And it may at this moment be too strong to do something different. But it allows you at least to observe what was happening so that the next time it comes, then you have a little more choice about how to deal with it. It's a kind of a gradual process. And I think here, the whole notion of self-acceptance is so important. It's often so difficult for people in actually many different cultures to just accept where they are in life and who they are in life. We always think we have to be something better, something more, something prettier, something, smarter, whatever. We all have that voice running in our head, and it keeps us from being able to see ourselves as we are, and if you can't see yourself as you are, you have no starting point for a process of change. And so that sense of self-acceptance doesn't mean complacency. I mean, it doesn't mean just being satisfied with that's where I am and that's all I'm going to be, the way that some people will say, well, that's who I am, because that just solidifies that, sanskara in place that's so painful. But by gradually allowing yourself to accept what is coming up in you, gradually over time, you begin to learn how to relate to those things that are arising out of your habitual life and to begin to do something different. Does that answer your question, I hope?
Can I add something more?
Sure.
If and then you can answer the Ravi Shankar. What I find is that understanding that we are only an instrument of the cosmic flow allows us that whenever these sanskaras arise, we recognize whether they are part of our swadharma or not. And I think the first sutra or the second sutra from the second chapter, Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga, tells us a way whereby we can approach this. The Ishvara Pranidhana is when when we get caught up in these kind of sanskaras that are emanating, we do two things. One is we mentally surrender it to God, and second is we ask the question, why is this coming over there? And that's a mental question. That is the swadhyaya. The swadhyaya and the Ishvara Pranidhana allows us to slowly become purified from in that process, and thereby the tapas aspect, the purification aspect, comes. I just want to add that. Ravi Shankar, please now tell us whether your question.
It very aptly answers actually both of you, that I think if you are consistent with your practices, all these subtle things, I think they come down. And as you said that, Ishwar Paridhana and then Swadhyaya, self-studies, and being focused in the life, I think it helps to overcome, because as I am practicing here. So I think very useful advice, actually. It just reinforces my belief, actually, that I'm on the right thing. Thank you so much.
Can I add a little bit also, Rajanji?
Go ahead.
to me, it seems that the key point that Somaji brought about, you brought about, is how to become an observer of your own self. And that what it does is also creates a little bit of distance between the drama that's being played and you, your soul, and all that. So when you're surrendering, you're in a way saying that I accept what's going on, but that's not me. And thereby, the letting go process can occur more naturally. That's how I've tried to practice, and it seems to work pretty well.
Absolutely. There is one other question for people who don't want the mind to be distracted all the time that I would like to ask the question. How many people have your mobile phones near you, and every time there is a ping, you lift up the phone and look at it? Okay? So, very interesting. See, the thing is, you see, for me, the mobile phone is there. But unless somebody calls me on the phone, I don't really look at it except when I'm intuitively guided to look at it. So if you are trying to contact me by doing a text message or a WhatsApp message, you are highly unlikely to get a immediate answer from me. It may be a day or a few days before I respond back to you. Okay, so the one of the things that I have learned is, as we learn to be an observer within the state, the inner guidance tells you when you should be looking and when you should not be looking. And letting the outer element dictate how your inner element should react is generally not a good idea if you want to keep your inner awareness within. Just a thought for you.
Although we know that Rajanji does watch his email fairly carefully because he responds pretty quickly to those.
Yeah, I check my email 3 times a day. Okay, but I'm not always looking at the emails as they pop up. Yes. Yeah.
I have a question, Dr. Rajan, regarding the attention and everything in a one place. When I'm doing my religious activity in the morning, I have to be very quiet, do in everything inner side. But at that time, I always think about what do I do today? Even my phone is not besides me. What is my schedule today? To whom I have to call today? What do I cook? I cannot control on that. What to do?
Well, it's very simple. You mentally ask, what should I do? They all come to you. And the thing is, when they come to you, they take care of themselves.
I understand, but at that time, at that same time, I cannot control.
Well, before you sit down to do your puja, have this conversation with your mind and just ask your mind, what do we need to deal with so that I can be quiet during my puja? And I think you'll be surprised after a while to hear your mind actually talk back to you. It will. And it will give you that list of things that you've been pushing to the side. And once you know what the list is and you can commit to doing the things that you need to do, then then your mind will let go of it and you can be quiet.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
One thing that I've tried is to tell my mind to be quiet. And at times it follows the command, becomes quiet. Some thought comes in, hey, mind, be quiet. And gradually those thoughts stop coming up at all.
And if it's really important, sometimes your mind says, no, pay attention. My master, Swami Rama, used to say that next to meditation itself, having that kind of self-dialogue with your mind is the most helpful thing you can do to prepare your mind for meditation. And just that little piece about having that conversation when you sit down is very, very useful. But there are so many other ways that having a dialogue with your mind can help your mind to be quieter over time.
Any other questions, thoughts? Well, everybody is observing inner awareness.
Trying to ask the mind, what question should we ask, Rajanji?
Did you explain what is mindfulness exactly? I don't understand.
Manji?
Mindfulness is the intentional paying attention. It's making a conscious choice to observe, to witness. And that choice, the act of that choice, switches on your buddhi. Most of the time in meditative traditions, we help people to begin to do that by just watching their breath. And observing the breath, we know from neuroscience, is a switch that turns the mindfulness system on in your brain and nervous system. Repetition of mantras is the same thing. And so that's sort of the initial layer of it. And there are many, many layers to that kind of mindfulness. The term that they use in the Buddhist meditation systems is vipassana, which is the Pali transformation of Sanskrit vipassana, which basically just means observation. And it's usually used in a technical sense especially by researchers, to refer to a type of meditation where you leave your mind completely open to whatever arises, as opposed to the sorts of meditation that we tend to do that focus on, for example, mantras that we concentrate on. And a lot of people make the argument that these are separate things, but if you listen to what the masters say, they say, no, these are just different facets of the same experience. And so this mindfulness has many, many layers to it. In fact, my own master Swami Rama used to say, he said this to one of his disciples one time, and this is a wonderful little sutra for all of us. The person had come to him with a question from a meditation student, and the student had written him a letter. So the master came into the room, and my friend realized that he had left the letter back in his room. So he gets up to go get the letter, and Swamiji says, no, sit down. Put your hands out, look up. And so he does this. Piece of paper comes floating out of the air, and Swamiji says, is this the letter you're looking for? And my friend said, yes, Swamiji, can you teach me to do that? Because we all want to learn that stuff, you know. And Swamiji just chuckled at him and said, Sonny, beta, just refine your breath awareness. All of this will come to you. And that's true for all of yoga. If you refine your ability to have those layers of mindfulness of breath, and you go through, which is essentially the same thing as the different layers of japa, eventually all of the advanced practices of yoga will happen in your mind spontaneously. This is what my mentor Swami Veda used to refer to as lazy man's yoga. He said, I always practice lazy man's yoga. But what he meant by that was that the most advanced practice there is in yoga is this refinement of awareness that represents these many, many layers of mindfulness that we have. And one of the tools that we have that helps us to go deeper in the mind field is the process of japa getting more and more refined. And by japa, I don't mean the effort to consciously repeat a mantra. When you do that, you create an obstacle for your mind. It's more a matter of listening for the mantra and allowing the mantra to come to you. And when you listen for it in your meditation, gradually as your meditation deepens, the experience of the mantra becomes finer and finer and finer. At one level, for example, it loses all of its syllables. There are no more syllables. People often find that anxiety provoking. You know, I'm supposed to be repeating something, you know. But this is like getting used to relaxing your physical body. You're relaxing the physical body of the mantra. And it's like relaxing your physical body. and letting go of sort of holding on to it like we tend to do. And it feels quite different when you actually do the corpse posture and you succeed in it. That feels quite different from the ordinary way that you experience your body as you go deeper into the experience. Same thing for japa. Eventually, it becomes just a flash. I mean, even a long mantra like Gayatri or Mrityunjaya, you can experience in a single flash of sound or light. And even that goes into a kind of silent space in your mind where the presence of the mantra is there, but the words are gone because the words are too gross. And so this mindfulness has so many different levels and layers. And the more you practice, the more you keep that mindful attitude as you go through your day, the more sensitive you become to being able to go deeper in those layers of your mind. And each deeper layer has a higher frequency to it. So it's not a matter of making an effort to repeat a mantra faster. That's just going to get you all tired out and frustrated. But it's a matter of allowing your awareness to settle into those deeper layers of the mind field where the mantra just spontaneously becomes faster and more subtle. It's really a process of letting go and allowing the deepening to happen. And we're not used to doing that. We're used to being in control all the time, you know. And so, I mean, that's why the great yogis are also relaxed. You know, they don't make efforts for things. So I hope that answers your question. That's probably more of an answer than you needed.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ravi Nair, I think, wants to say something, right?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Happy Easter to everybody. Thank you. Tagging on to what Steve Soma Parker mentioned just now, the student relating to the teacher and the student forgetting about the paper going out. There is a historic also same type of incident that happened between Guru Sishya Parambara, between Adi Shankara and his Sishya. His student wrote the book and he narrated every detailed story to the Guru, the Adi Shankara, and Adi Shankara went on into meditation while the student was narrating the whole story. In fact, the student wanted to get the title for that particular book he wrote. And while Adi Shankara was in meditation, all of a sudden, he forgot everything. The student thought, oh, Adi Shankara didn't like the book. So he put the entire book into his Agni Homam, and then the whole thing went into ashes. Then all of a sudden, Adi Shankara woke up from his meditation and said, why you stopped? What happened to reading the story that you didn't complete? Then he said, no, I thought you were into sleeping. You didn't like the entire book I wrote. So I put it in the Homam. So Adi Shankara said, no, what happened? Well, you cannot remember everything. Then Adi Shankara narrated the entire book that the student wrote and asked him to rewrite everything. And he gave the title also, Agni Homa Mitra. So that's the title of the book, which he originally wanted. The student wanted to give the title. So even though he wrote and he narrated the entire story, everything, he forgot because the Guru didn't like it. He put it in the Agni. So the mindfulness, the student lost his mindfulness, but again, in the deep meditation, Adi Shankara recollected the entire verses and everything he wrote, narrated back to the student, asked him to write everything back, and then the title of the book also came up. So again, the mindfulness and everything we're talking about in Bhagavad Gita also, chapter 6, the word says, Uddare Atma Atmanam Na Atmanam Avasayade Atmeina Atmana Bandhu Atmeina Ribu Atmana. In our own mind, there are two aspects that Steve Parker mentioned. Buddhi, Chitta, Ahangara. The Ahangara is the lowest form of aspects that it doesn't influence our mind. So, but again, if you go into elevated state, our own mind becomes the friend, and also the mind, the Ahangara becomes the enemy. So once you identify this aspect, you control your mind and you can elevate yourself. So again, the same thing going on in even the mind aspect, inner aspects and everything, even in your own mother's womb, as our old story says, Prahlada, in his mother's womb, Narada coming and narrating the story and started saying the Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. So where is the mind happening? Whether it is in our physical body or in mother's womb. So where is it? Its entire universe is our own mind. Sometimes we think. So again, in the Narayana Sukta, it says, Tasya Shikaya Madhye Paramatma Vyavasthidaha Sabbrahma Sashiva Sahari Swendra Sochara Paramaswarat. So if you're talking about in our own physical body, the Shikaya Madhye Paramatma is there. So if we started thinking about that Paramatma, entire things will come up. So you can elevate from your own mind to the highest blissful level of the state. So this is what the brief explanation I want to share with you. Thank you.
Ashok ji, you are trying to say something. Ashok Gupta ji, you have to unmute yourself.
No, I was praising this gentleman who was speaking these Sanskrit shlokas. I was just talking to my wife. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I have got one question, Dr. Rajan and Steve ji. That Patanjali Yoga Sutra, does it talk about yoga of action? Like most of the, I think, knowledge is about silencing the mind, and controlling the vikaras. But does it talk about any action things, service to humanity? What's your view?
See, the thing is, the key part is Kriya Yoga is the term that is used in the Yoga Sutras for what you would consider as Karma Yoga. Whether it is Kriya Yoga or Karma Yoga, which is exactly their synonyms for each other, the key element of it is purification of our subtle entity, of our causal body, comes through the process of surrendering everything to God, as well as through the process of inquiry, seeking why. That is the Swadhyaya. So this process, basically what it does is it's saying that you have to engage in the world to fulfill the purpose of your living, your Swadharma. So the concept of Swadharma, the concept of Karma Yoga, the concept of Kriya Yoga, it does not mean you have to do good for humanity. It means you have to fulfill the purpose of your life, as a consequence of which, things will happen. And from the perspective of the viewer who always think at everything as good and bad, they will make their own judgments about good and bad. The idea of good and bad does not exist in the cosmic flow. Being true to the purpose for which you are born is what defines it. And in this context, in a larger sense, when we understand the process of the cosmic flow, you will find that there are, within the existing world, there are 4 different types of people. There is the type of people who are the yogi types, who are looking in terms of imbibe the understanding of the nature of existence and doing what they are born for. Then there is another group of people whose basic thinking has not elevated into what is beyond the spiritual world, or if there is any elevation, it is partial, and their greater focus is on the well-being of humanity, of the entire created world. So those people, their focus will always be on doing good and suppressing bad. And that is why the first category of people who are focused on the what is the purpose of existence and my Swadharma, that concept is called the Brahmana, the way of thinking. And then the people who think in terms of doing good to the humanity and the world are the Kshatriyas, who are looking to do for the well-being of the society. Now, there's another kind of people who are often self-centered. What is good for me is the only thing they're concerned about. And then there are the unthinking kind of people. And as the Bhagavad Gita teaches, as much as even the implication of the Yoga Sutras is that all of this is part of the cosmic flow, the programs that are coming within. So one who is in the level of doing one swadharma, the person is entirely accepting whatever comes, whether it is good or bad, whether people are seeking to do good or whether people are self-centered. Everything is part of living, and you're only looking to do your swadharma because you understand that each person's action makes the entire cosmic flow, right? So the concept of good or bad is not in the conventional sense. The concept of good is sticking to your swadharma. Stomaji, anything to add?
I think that sums it up nicely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajan Mens, for this advice. You know, I can write my life to you. So much deep intuition and you know, well presented, and it really hits my cause that we are here for a cause. Actually, we should find out ourselves why we are here in this world and do our swadharma, and then by doing the action as in Bhagavad Gita, that you evolve yourself, and then all this Patanjali Yoga Sutra and other teachings, they help actually very aptly, you know. Yeah.
Building awareness within is the process
Yeah.
of recognizing your swadharma. And I always tell people, you don't have to go looking for your swadharma. They will always come and stand in front of you. And what happens is, very often, what will happen is, Stomaji talks about, in the next session, he will talk about the concept of pure sankalpa. The concept of pure sankalpa is when you don't seek anything, where you don't have any desire. In your state of being fully aware, something pops in, and you say, it comes into your mind. That we call as the pure sankalpa, is the process by which your purpose of your life, your swadharma, is being presented to you right through you. And similarly, what happens is, for most people, when people come and ask them for a question, or when something comes to you in the mail, you look at it. Maybe in each one of these cases, you don't have to go looking for stuff, right? They come to you. But by the same token, let's not look in terms of every little thing that happens in that same way, in the sense people are fond of sending junk mail and junk email and things like that. Most of them are distractions, so we shouldn't think of everyone as as something coming to you. But you will find once in a while something strikes a chord and comes to you. That's when you recognize your swadharma. The pure sankalpa concept is a very important concept. Somaji will discuss next time. But this is where you get intuitions and you feel this is what you do. And the moment you go in that direction, you will find all the doors simply open up because it's meant to happen.
Thank you so much.
So, Rajanji, how is the cosmic flow set up? Is that Ishvara's doing, or Purusha's, or Prakritis, or what?
It's a very interesting question you raise over here. And I'm going to give you my opinion based upon my own experience. But I think Somaji should also speak on this. The thing is, you see, while in many of the Vedantic literature, the Purusha or God is considered as an impartial observer. Actually, I find that that description misses out something. In fact, what happens is, in the process of creation, the first intent of creation comes from Ishvara alone. And the Mahat that comes out, that is spoken of in the Sankhya system, working through, that creates all of the process and intent. So I would not completely absolve Ishvara or Purusha out of the, system of creation and say, Purusha is a pure observer. But yes, a pure observer after kicking the process going, it may be a better way of saying it. Somaji, would you like to comment on that?
Well, yes. I mean, the Ishvara has the spanda, the spontaneous urge to do something, and that spanda then comes down into the prakriti and it becomes manifest. There's actually in part of the commentary that Kshemaraja makes on, I think it's Sutra number 11 of the Shiva Sutras, in Kashmir Shaivism, he talks about how the Sanskrit alphabet is an algorithm for the process of the manifestation of the physical universe. And if you think about it carefully, it becomes very clear pretty quick that this is actually also a different language for talking about quantum physics, quantum mechanical physics. So the two things operate very much in parallel. So, I mean, the way that this stuff is structured is that, the inspiration comes from Ishvara or from the spiritual part, and that light shines into the subtlest parts of Prakriti in Mahat, and the manifestation continues from there and becomes increasingly physical as it goes along.
So Ashokji, the idea is that the Purusha within us, when it is in its pure state, it guides you to your Swadharma, just in the same way the Purusha of Ishvara creates the initial Sankalpa to create all of creation.
And all that part is in the unmanifest part of the creation.
Absolutely.
Actually,
when you're talking of unmanifest, I think you're speaking relative to the three-dimensional world, right?
No, I'm talking about the real unmanifest.
Okay. So, but let's clarify for everyone. When we talk about the creation, we always talk about three levels. Most people understand the three-dimensional world we live in, but beyond the three-dimensional world, there is a subtle world. And beyond the subtle world is where Ishvara is. And that is the reason in all the traditional, pujas, everything, they talk about Om Bhu Bhuva Swa. So Bhu is the created world, Bhuva is what is beyond that, and Swa is the highest. Swa indicates your true being, the Swa of Purusha. So the thing is basically, once we understand it that way, what Ashokji was mentioning is, when you talk about unmanifest, he's saying that is what is associated with at the Purusha level, not at the second level of Prakriti or the third level of the world that we actually experience at three-dimensional. Right, Ashokji?
Yeah, pretty much. Thanks.
So that's right. The thing is, you see, what is very interesting is your Swadharma unfolding, as the Yoga Sutra is very clear in saying that all sentient beings have a dual connection between Prakriti and Purusha. So Purusha is the connection to Ishvara, and the Prakriti is to our connection is to all of creation. So what happens is, when we are able to connect into Purusha, through the eyes of Purusha, we are able to experience our role in the play of Prakriti. So that is the point that Ashokji was mentioning, that realizing that is in the zone of the unmanifest or at the level of Purusha. Right? That was what you were alluding to, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So Stomaji, is that okay?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Did anyone that's here, or someone that you know, ever see outside of Ishvara, like see what he sees or she sees? No? Anyone? And then Dr. Stoma, I did want to say that we really missed your heart cave meditation at the retreat this year.
I'm sorry that I had to miss the retreat.
Yeah.
My mobility has been much reduced as a result of my physical problems, and we're working on that.
Well, you were in my prayers, and I was wondering, would that ever be something that you could do online? And if we all faced our cameras to make sure we wouldn't have come out of it?
No, we can do
like,
that.
That was pretty, it was like an hour and a half. Is that?
It was nice and long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty
I
cool.
don't.
I
Tammy,
think we
you
have
may
a
not
recording
realize.
of that, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. We
Sorry.
have a recording of that. Then in which
I saw it on YouTube. I think Stomaji starts with some loosening exercises and all, and then I think it's almost 1.5 hours long. I mean, it's really
Oh,
beautiful. I saw it.
yeah. Oh, yes.
Maybe I can share it with you,
yoga
Tammy.
practice. Right.
Yes,
That would be
it's
great.
yeah,
However, when there's the teacher, you
Yeah.
can tune
that's
into
true.
the
I mean, of
teachers.
course.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not the teacher. I'm a voice.
The leader.
I'm an instrument, but your relationship with the teacher is always there. It's always there. And it's, I think, a great gift of grace to be able to feel that. I feel my master's presence whenever I close my eyes. And he left the body in 1996. And I was with him for 26 years, up until the point where he left his body. All that time, I was not ready to be taught by him. And so he left me alone. He was very nice to me, I'm sorry to say. Because when Swami Rama loved you, he would burn you up. And he didn't bother with me because I couldn't take it until the year that he was going to leave the body. And then that year, all of a sudden I had this impulse to go to India, which I thought was my own idea. And I realized after the fact I had nothing to do with this. I was clearly being summoned. And the reason was I had finally become ready. And so my whole teaching relationship with my guru has been without his body. And I used to think that was a problem. Now I think it's actually been a great blessing, because my whole experience of guru is entirely impersonal. I don't, when I feel the presence of my guru, I don't hear Swami Rama's voice, because that voice went with that body. And I keep telling people, if when a guru reincarnates and comes back, don't think of them in terms of their previous body. That was a different body. If you do that, you won't recognize them when they come to you. And people used to do this with him all the time. People would come to Swami Rama and they'd be having a conversation, and then he would look at them very seriously and he would say, "Do you not recognize me, Beta?" And people would be very confused because they had not met him in this lifetime, even though they had some previous experience with him. And so when I do those practices, I'm actually doing, I don't teach anything. I do the practices and I tell you what I'm doing. And some people call that teaching. That's fine. But that's something coming through me. It's not me doing anything. And so that presence of the guru is there whenever you practice. They always come to you. This is one of the siddhis that comes with asteya. The sutra says, to one in whom asteya has become solidly established, all treasures attend upon that person, is what the commentary says. And those treasures, it's not like you're going to walk down the street and find $100 bill. What it means is that the attention of the siddhas comes to you. Those are the treasures. And whenever, Swamiji used to say, whenever you meditate, I am there. And that's true whether you have met a guru in the body in this life or not. You're not on this path just by your own choice. You're on this path based on sanskaras that you created in your mind over lifetimes that put you on the spiritual path. And sometimes we have had gurus in the body and sometimes not. But they always guide. They're always there. So, feel free to use the recordings and just, allow the guru to speak to you through that recording. I have a YouTube channel. I think the name of it is Stephen Anthony Parker, if I remember right. And there are some recordings of practices there that you can access if you like.
And Tammy, Somaji is only about 4 or 5 hours of driving distance from you.
He is. Where are you? I'm by Chicago.
Oh, I'm in Minneapolis.
Oh,
Yeah,
my goodness.
5 hours.
Okay. In Minnesota.
Yep.
Dr. Rod, thank you. for that, and I can see what possibilities come from that. Dr. Rajan, can I also ask something about that pyramid meditation that we went through a couple times? I was wondering, like, there's different types of pyramids. I get that, but do we like do the border of the pyramid? Would it be like a mental pyramid up here, or something's been coming to me about making the pyramid the square on the floor around me, like
right.
envisioning that?
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. It is like a square on the floor with 4 sides that peak above you. So you're sitting inside the pyramid. That is a visualization we did, right?
Yeah. Okay. I was putting my etheric self in the pyramid instead of my body. So thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
we are essentially etheric. The body is only what we call as a representation, right? So effectively, if you think of yourself in the pyramid, the idea is it's the etheric being that is sitting inside the pyramid.
Okay. And then, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Ashokji, you want to say something before we ask Arun Agrawal to this thing on the question of pyramid?
Well, I've been looking at it from the physics side as well as from the spiritual side on the pyramids, and some of the experiments that I've conducted with the pyramids. You can actually see the measurable difference in the magnetic field at the tip of the pyramid. On the other side, of course, there is a lot of studies that people have done for pyramids and their roles at the etheric level and higher levels. I'm still trying to learn more about it.
So that would be us in the pyramid, right, Coach? Like that's the scalar waves coming out the top.
Something like that. But tell me, the biggest thing that I have found is that all this is play at the etheric energy levels and higher. And those energies get manipulated a lot by the shapes. And in particular, when you have triangular shapes, they have very strong, powerful interaction. And that's why you'll find that all the yantras that are there in Hindu temples and such, they primarily have triangles. And they're capable of absorbing as well as releasing certain types of energies. So the simplest one, of course, is the pyramid kind of experiment in which there is a measurable type of energy. But the kind of energy that comes out of these pyramids is not particularly aimed, like there are yantras for wealth and for prosperity and for health and such kinds of things. Yeah. So they are more directed energies. These yantras that we are constructing, these pyramids that we are constructing are not directed energy. That's how at least I feel about it.
So what about those pyramids that you hang up, those copper pyramids that you hang up above your head in the house?
Oh, that just makes your head pointed up.
No, okay. No need for them. Thank you.
To have a pointed head. I like to joke around, as you can see.
So Arun Agrawal, you have a question? Go ahead. Sushmaji, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused about when you were explaining about the 4 levels of thinking process. The ones who do Swadharma, they are the Brahman, and then the who do the good for the society are the Kshatriya. So in my mind, I'm thinking the one who is good for others, for the society, should be a level higher than the one who is only thinking about themselves.
Okay, this is a very interesting concept. The concept of Swadharma for each person is defined according to their nature. So for a person whose nature is defined by them seeking to do good to society, by being in tune with them, they are doing their Swadharma. And for a person who is in the mode of thinking what is beyond the physical world, by doing what they are meant to do, they are doing their Swadharma. For a person who is self-centered and is only seeking to do what is of benefit to them, by being true to their nature, they are also doing their Swadharma. Okay? And the unthinking person, being way they are, they just take things as they come. They too are doing their own swadharma. So being true to one's nature is what is called being, doing your swadharma.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? So it looks like today's session is going to be a shorter session than usual. We have 2 hours, but then today also, except for Ravi Shankar from Dubai, I don't think we have many of our Dubai people. I wonder whether it's related to the time difference and how people may be affected.
Yeah, it's a Ramadan month, so people, they break their fast at this time, around 6:30 UAE time. So that could be also one of the reasons that some people are not here. Plus, I think there is an Easter festival today, so some people could be absent because of that.
Somaji, I checked. It's Stephen Parker channel. It takes me somewhere else.
Okay. Trying to think what search terms you could use on. Yeah, when I look it up on my phone, it just says Stephen Parker. But then I also have a designation of at Stephen Parker, one word, 4083.
Is it Indica
So how do you
Yoga?
spell it?
That's an Instagram tag.
But I'm not on Instagram. Yeah, I don't know what that.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
So it's not related with the topic, but I just want to know like how to stay positive and motivated.
How to stay positive and motivated. The key idea of being positive and motivated comes from the idea that you have to do something, right? But when you're letting things flow through you and you're letting things as they come, and you have the attitude of acceptance of what comes, and then from your inner insight, you just do what seems to be your inner guidance. You're always in the zone of being positive. So by learning to build awareness within, you automatically work with the positivity of doing the purpose for which you are born. So the starting point of positivity is our regular yoga practice that builds you towards you're building your inner awareness, right? That is not, did that answer question?
Yeah. Okay. No, I thought you were asking me. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Dr. Rajan, which book we would recommend for Patanjali Yoga Sutra? Considering that there are so many books available, so like if any recommendation suggestions, that will be quite useful. And also the chapter which relates to the topic today, that will be also quite helpful.
See, Stomaji and I worked on the translation of the Yoga Sutras and understanding of it. We haven't yet published it. When we do the, we are right now working with the introductory text. When we get to that may be something we'll recommend. But at this point in time, I think there are 2 places where I find the Yoga Sutras have been discussed in a great detail and very well. One is Swami Ved Bharati, right? That is Somaji's, after Swami Rama, Swami Ved Bharati was the head of the Himalayan, the Ahimsan part of Himalayan tradition. and the other one is from the Yoga Institute in Mumbai. And so those two I find are much more broader. And you see, what happens is the commentary and translation of Yoga Sutra that are written by people who have experienced yoga is of a very different category from those that are written by scholars. And most of the writings you'll find by scholars. And actually, just to describe the distinction between a scholar and a yogi is a story that Stomaji once told us over here in our group, is that there was somebody who had written a PhD dissertation on meditation. And he had done the mistake of having Swami Veda to be on his committee. So they go for the dissertation, the final defense. And so Swamiji asked him, what kind of meditation have you been doing? And the person said, no, I haven't been doing any meditation. He's only a scholar. So Swamiji said, then there's nothing to talk about. Right? So Stomaji, so the part is basically too much of the Yoga Sutra work has been done by scholars, and I don't think you will find useful things over there. But ones that are written by yogis, like Swami Ved Bharati or from the Yogendra from Yoga Institute, you'll find them more persuasive. Any thoughts on it, Swamiji? Stomaji?
Yeah, I was just distracted because I'm trying to sort out this YouTube business. There is another guy on YouTube named Stephen Parker who coaches football.
Yes.
So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm changing the name on the channel to Stephen Parker and then Stoma in parentheses. That should fix it, I think.
But the Yoga Sutras by Narayananji, you have it on YouTube.
Yeah, but mine is only, that is there. And I have given several lectures on Yoga Sutras, and it is on YouTube, and others who have looked at it can guide you where to look for them. I cannot personally, I don't know where to look for them.
But the book is also coming, Dr. Rajan. That's what
if that is what is the cosmic flow's will and God's will, it will show up at some time soon.
Also, one question, Dr. Rajan, that generally it is said that Patanjali Yoga Sutra, even if you don't believe in God and all, you can still follow and you can get benefit. But when it comes to the actual crux of it, as you said, Iswar Paridhana. So that I find a conflict, means with God and without God. Please clear this doubt for me. Thank you.
Somaji would like to say something. Go ahead.
Buddha forbade his monks from having any discussions about whether God exists or not. It wasn't just because he was atheistic. It was because he understood that it's useless to talk about the highest reality until you've actually had an experience of it. And so why even bother? I think was his attitude about that. And so, yes, it's not necessary to believe in a personified sort of deity. That's very helpful for many people, and that's fine to do. But just gradually refining your awareness will eventually take you to the experience of that highest reality, and then you're there. Whether you decide to call it God or not, doesn't really matter. The ultimate reality is both full of everything, Brahman, and it's nothing, Shunya. It's both, and it's beyond both.
So that is what, the Yoga Sutra tells you about Ishvara. The concept of Ishvara, of God, as described in the Yoga Sutra, is something that is beyond name and form, and something that is in the nature outside the cycle of karma. And that is what is the connection into every living being that has Chetana. And that is what is the source of the ultimate unsurpassed knowledge of everything, of all of existence, right? So if you look at it that way, if you look in terms of the word Ishvara Pranidhana in the Yoga Sutras, what you're basically doing is you're mentally letting go to that source that is the source of unsurpassed knowledge, the source from where everything came. So that is beyond the concept of personal God or whatever. But yet, for people have to understand that unless they have the willingness to let go, that willingness to let go automatically is the, and let go to something that you don't even know what it is, beyond name and form. I think that would be one way for people to explain Ishwar Pranidhana for people who are beginners in the yoga, who are learning to be pure observers without having to focus on a belief in a specific God or not. Would you agree with that, Somaji?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, well said. I think person has to, once he's on this path, he or she, ultimately they will discover themselves, what it is.
Right.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions from anyone?
What is this Stomaji view about motivation and stay positive?
You mean how to
Yeah.
be motivated and stay positive?
Yes.
The motivation eventually comes from just joyfulness. Once you really learn the trick of remaining mindful, your mind becomes more joyful as a natural development. And that joyfulness is something that we prefer to just about any other mental state. And so you become naturally attracted to the path of Dharma as you become more joyful and happy. I think that's the secret to motivation on the path. Our other motivations come from our instinctive desires, food, sleep, sex, self-preservation. And so many people live their lives just according to satisfying those desires. And the path of yoga says, that's the way to bondage. The way to freedom is to pursue the path of joy. And so as you do that, it becomes the natural thing to do, I guess. And it's something that you seek because it makes you happy. It makes you happy. It gives you more love. It gives you more compassion in life. It gives you a better life. I mean, you taste your life so much more than other people do on the spiritual path.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions or no more thoughts, then we can close a little earlier today.
Narayananji, do you have anyone for like panelist speakers for the next month?
You have a suggestion?
Yes, I have a friend in Hyderabad who is a pranic healer. And he's very deeply into yoga. So can I ask him if he's free to join or, be the speaker for as a pranic healer?
For the power of intention, sankalpa in daily living?
Yes, for what, yes.
Do you have a website or something on him?
I can ask him if he has any of those tools, so you can check, you can read about him.
No, we don't need to read. I just need to see a picture.
Oh, okay. Okay, I can ask him to do that. So for our next monthly session.
No. Just tell me his name right now.
Sasidhar Chinta.
How do you spell the name?
Sasidhar. Chinta, Chinta.
Okay. And is he part of Chinta Sasidhar Foundation?
I have not gone deeply into that. I actually communicate with him on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I can ask him.
Okay, but he's a pranic healer, you said, right?
Yes, he's become a pranic healer. He was He's done many things in life, like, he was a leftist, he has a PhD in political science, but then he thought everybody just brainwashed him into so many things, and he found his path.
I see. So what we will do is, you see, this is decided by our CYAI group as a whole. Stomaji is over here, and I think Ratna may also be here somewhere. But then the decision is made collectively by everyone, so I can present the name for discussion to the entire group, and they can tell us. So it looks like this is the person, right?
I'm trying to look.
Can you see the shared screen?
Can I, the one with the Om?
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I am, but not these other people, just the one with Om.
This
Peter.
one.
Yeah, can you enlarge that, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
That's him.
Yes.
And this is the this is his LinkedIn, founder of Soham School for Healing, right?
Yes.
And so what we will do is, we every Tuesday we meet, have our CYI meeting.
Okay.
So when we have the meeting, this 2 days from today, we can have this for discussion over there, right?
Okay. And in the meantime, I will also check with him. He said April is busy for him, but May is open. So I can ask him if he's free. That's once you decide, I can ask him.
Mm. Excellent, excellent. Okay.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, suggestions from anyone? Okay, so with that, then we will finish the session early today. So just as a summary of the key points of building awareness within, the key points to remember is, first is, it is the bridge for the higher practices of yoga. It is equivalent to pratyahara. It is the understanding of that is where you reach when you have a high level of purification in the system that makes you ready for the higher meditative and spiritual realization. And this is, you attain this stage by learning to live mindfully. The word used, mindfully, is in the concept of mindfulness meditation. The real idea is you learn to live your life with low reactivity. And as Somaji mentioned, that most of us, we are reacting to everything that the world comes around. We begin by limiting our reaction, and the concept of the Brahma Viharas from the Sutra number 33 of the first chapter that Somaji mentioned. So Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha, relative to, when you come across things that are opposite, and building that kind of an attitude is the beginning state. And slowly, by daily practice of whether watching your breath or whatever other practices, you build the awareness to be a observer of things as opposed to a person who is reacting all the time. That's what builds in the awareness within, and of course becomes the bridge for higher realization. So that's a summary of what we have discussed today, right? And this kind of a session was really more designed so that individuals, when they have questions how to attain that for themselves, will have an opportunity to ask more questions. So it looks like all of you have been satisfied, right? No further questions? Last call?
Yes.
One quick question.
Yeah,
Can I have one quick question?
Yes.
So, when I do yoga, so I was looking for a mantra. So they say
you concentrate on your breathing, like, inhale, exhale, and some say like Om Namo Shiva, some say like go like Ram Ram. So do you have mantra like when you do yoga? Like I'm just like trying to
Well,
get.
this is a very big subject.
Oh, okay.
And just to say something briefly about it, mantras are usually given in an initiation. In that way, you receive a mantra whose Shakti has been awakened. And that is an intuitive process that happens. I mean, I often tell people, as a mantra initiator, I know just enough Sanskrit to be dangerous, to have my own ideas about what mantra a person should have. And I cannot let those ideas get in the way. I sit with the person in meditation. A mantra is given to me by my guru, and that's what I have to give the person, whether I think it's the right one or not. And there are lots of funny stories about my own problems with all of that. But until the time that you have an initiated mantra, you can use what we call a universal mantra, hum with the exhalation, so with the inhalation, which actually is a very powerful and sophisticated mantra. There are a number of Upanishads about it. And you can also use your favorite divine name. That's just fine. Those are all things that help to bring you to the place to be ready to use a mantra with an initiation, a personal mantra.
So just to
Yeah.
go ahead. Okay, to add to that further thing is, you see, there are two types of mantra approaches, actually not two types, actually three types of mantra approaches that are done. One is consistent with that of the Yoga Sutras. The other two are not things that the Yoga Sutra directly deals with. Okay? The one that is consistent with the approach of Yoga Sutra is the approach of the Gayatri Mantra. In the Yoga Sutras, the focus is on purification within, and that purification within, when it is complete, it is your intention. Your mantra becomes your intention. Like in the Gayatri Mantra, it is an intention that you want to become enlightened, whereby you can fulfill the purpose of your existence, which is what the mantra is all about. So the other approaches to mantras typically come from the Tantra tradition. In the Tantra tradition, there are two different approaches on how mantras are found. One approach of mantra is exactly what Stomaji described. He described what he gets it from his guru, but what he gets it from his guru is actually the concept of what is called harmonic vibration, the equal and opposite vibration of one's inherent sanskaras, or the programs that are running within you that makes you who you are. So that is a very personalized mantra that is suitable for you. Now, there is a second type of tantra-based mantra that are used. And these tantra-based mantras, that the second type that are used, actually they move away from the Yoga Sutras. By the way, the harmonic vibration of mantra, while not actively noted in the Yoga Sutras, it is consistent with yoga philosophy, and it is actually, everyone will not be given a mantra. Only when the person is ready will the mantra come. Right, Somaji?
Sure.
So, yeah. And so what happens is, this is consistent with the Kashmir Shaivism concept of Shaktopaya. So in other words, only when the person is ready, the mantra will come and it will be given to them. Now, so it is also consistent with the Yoga Sutras, that it is a Yoga Sutra as a whole is purification, and to reach the self-realization is the goal, and the concept of dharma is very much embedded within that. Whereas on the other hand, in a different tantra tradition, it is a high-level yogi can empower a mantra, and that empowerment of that mantra will work for that person so long as they stick over there and work in that tradition. Now, this is something that gets a little confusing for me as to whether it is consistent with the Yoga Sutras, because it brings the name and form and things that go along with it. And one such very powerful technique that I am aware of is the Siddha Yoga aside, that comes from Swami Muktananda in the US, and his guru used to be the Swami Nityananda. In his tradition, the mantra he gives to everyone is Om Namah Shivaya. Okay? But on the other hand, what happens is, before he gives them the mantra, he actually empowers them and he does what is called a Shaktipat. So the Shaktipat that is done is they literally by a touch, they empower they activate the person's nadis to a point of purification whereby the mantra will work. That is a more what I call an interventional approach, as opposed to something that naturally comes from the purification. So I have some concern as whether that is consistent with the dharmic flow, but these are the three approaches whereby mantras come. The concept, and one more item about all these mantras is, the real thing about mantras of the tantra nature is it's about the subtle vibration. It is not about audible chanting. Okay, it's a subtle vibration within. So that is what I will the comment that I will make on this question that was asked.
We should probably have a whole session just on mantra.
On mantra, okay. We'll put that into the calendar then. So Namaste Idrisi, we have Ambassador Idris from...
I have one question.
Yes.
Dr. Rajan. So
yes.
Initiation, is that also intervention, or when you get initiated for a mantra? Is that an intervention like you talked about?
What happens is, if you look in terms of what Stomaji was talking about and the way in which Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's organization do, they call it as an initiation. Whereas I don't, when you call it as an initiating, you're beginning something, right? By the true word of it. So when somebody is ready for a mantra and I find the mantra for them and I give them, you can call it initiation if you want, but to me it is a harmonic vibration that is suited for that person, right?
Okay.
So the initiation is only a word.
Okay, but that time you think the person is ready.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Mantra Diksha is the smallest degree of Shaktipata. And they increase from there.
On their own, right?
Yeah, on their own or with the guru's assistance, either way. I mean, the touch that's given in initiation can be a physical touch, but it can also be a mental touch.
Okay.
Yes, just to add to that, the Ramayana, we all know who composed it. Ratnagaran, who was a thief and everything, he couldn't even recite the name Rama. So Sanagadi Munis, they came in front of him and asked him to recite Rama, Rama, Rama. He could not say the Rama, Rama, the mantra. So they taught him to say Amara, Imara. To repeat that Amara, Imara, he finally came to the Rama, 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 the mantra. So the initiation started from the Sanagadi Muni.
Amara, Imara, Amara, Imara, Amara.
Rama, 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 like that, So again, mantra can be anything, but we cannot know what the mantra, but the guru will come to you at the right time, and then initiation will start right from there. And you'll start repeating the same name in the form of like what Ratnagara, he ultimately became Valmiki, who wrote the Ramayana, and then Sanagadi Muni blessed him too. So just to do that.
So since Idrisi has joined us, anything to add here, Idrisi? Idrisi is one of our board members of Council for Yoga Accreditation International. He's the head of the Western Yoga Associations of Western African Yoga Associations. So he's from Burkina Faso, and he used to be the ambassador for various countries, including India, for Burkina Faso. He used to be based in Delhi for many, many years, and he comes from the Ahimsan tradition of yoga.
Thank you so much. Namaste. Really, I don't have a lot of things to add. I think that all things was managed by you, by Stomaji. I'm just listening. Thank you.
So in that case, shall we close for today?
Yes, that's fine. Yes. Actually, the best ever Easter gift, I would say, Dr. Rajan and Dr. Stoma.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
See you next
Thank
time.
you. All the best.
Namaste,
Yeah, thank you.
Dr.